Hi, I'm David Holm, and I want to welcome you today to Family Talks. Family Talks is a weekly opportunity to get together as a West Virginia Baptist Convention family, not just to talk about things that are going on in our churches and communities, but also to find ways that we can partner together as we do God's work together. And my guest today is DaVontae Edwards. DaVontae is the Associate Minister for Youth and Young Adults at Fifth Avenue Baptist Church in Huntington. And so, DaVontae, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Good. We are glad to have you. To maybe give our later conversation some context, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey in life, and especially that got you to where you are today in your life and ministry.
Well, I grew up in on the west side of Charleston, West Virginia, and didn't really go to church much. Went occasionally the Easters and the Christmases, but really fell in love with God through Emmanuel Baptist Church there on the west side of Charleston, where the youth pastor reached out. We were going through some things in my family. And the youth pastor there just stepped up, and his name is Matt Lyons, and came in, and I lived with him and his family for a number of years, and just really grew to know Christ. Of course, he was a pastor, and really heard my calling in college. I was a criminal justice major at Marshall University, also playing football, and was balancing between, should I become a police officer or should I become a pastor? And I remember standing in the campus Christian center there and just giving it all to God and saying, I will do whatever you call me to do. And what he called me to do was go back to Emmanuel Baptist Church and be the children's pastor there, and then transition to the youth pastor, and then transition to the family minister. So spent a number of years pastoring at Emmanuel and helping children who are just like me, children who may have not been dealt the best hand, but for them to overcome circumstances. So that was a way that I was, giving back and using my gifts for God. And then got the call about Fifth Avenue Baptist, and prayed to God, may his will be done. And if it's so, let it be. And if it's not, okay, let it go. And God provided a way for me to be at Fifth Avenue, to go back to another hometown in Huntington, and to be able to minister to the youth there. So blessings about where I am. And now I'm in the Palmer Seminary program there in Extension, West Virginia. And so just a huge blessing, and my stories have definitely got me where I am today, and wouldn't change anything for the world.
One of the reasons that I asked you to join me today was I saw your dialogue the other day on Fifth Avenue Live, I believe is the name of the Facebook page, where you had a conversation with Pastor Porterfield. And, it's one of those things that was very, very moving for me. And also something that I would encourage those who are watching today, if you've not seen that, to check out Fifth Avenue Live and to see that particular dialogue that they had together. But while that dialogue followed the recent tragic deaths of George Floyd and others, your concerns go much deeper than just recent history, correct?
Right. It was and these deaths, though they are numerous, bring about the notion that something needs to change, and oftentimes we allow those things to just be in the moment. For me, it was looking at it, how can systematically we can change to a larger picture. We can march down streets and we can protest, but if it's not going to bring around change and change that lasts, then our voices have been just void and heard on deaf ears. So my goal was to really change that amongst the George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor situations. So that was really my angle of how can we look at this systematically, and how can we bring about a change while also having conversations about this. So
I know when we talked the other day, I told you that my concern is sometimes in response to tragedy, we do a lot of things that are symbolic, but they never really lead to any kind of substantive change. So I'm wondering, as a church, as Christians, what are some of the things that we can do to bring about a substantive change?
right. So the first step I honestly believe is to humble yourself and listen, humble yourself and pray, um, and listen and enter a conversation not for you to be heard, but for you to listen and really to empathize with the situation. May it be that you're not in that situation, but that you're hearing the hurt and pain. What we tend to see as the church is we look at some of the statistics of these deaths and statistics of other things of African Americans and people of color dying in America, and we try to allow that to rationalize some of our reasoning. But really, I believe that it's about listening to the hearts of people who are going through the situations, and allowing that to develop your next moves. Now, that's phase one. I think phase two is that we have to be able to stand firm and to put our words into action. And a lot of people are stuck with this because we don't know exactly how to move as a country, as a nation, as a church, to do what is right. Because if we take one step, we're going to get criticized, which way is right, which way is wrong. So I think we're in that phase of trying to understand what is right, but we only will know what is right, what the next step is, by listening to your fellow African American brothers and sisters, or your people of color brothers and sisters.
I know when we talked the other day that talking about the need for dialogue and honesty
Mm-hmm.
and open conversation about racism and injustice and really anything else as well, especially among believers. A lot of times I think that there's sometimes, I guess I'll just call it a fear, that when
Yeah.
we have those dialogues that we're afraid that we're going to say something the wrong way, or possibly there's a question that I genuinely want to ask because I want information or I want more understanding about it. But I'm fearful sometimes maybe of asking that question just because maybe to ask it would be viewed as me having some kind of other intentions or something. And so how can we have these safe spaces or these ways to have these conversations that need to happen?
Right. I think it's about how we approach the conversation. I think if you ask a question in order to seek your point in the situation, to try to prove your point in the situation, then no matter what question you ask, it's going to come off as if you were pointed at something different. Excuse me. But if you genuinely come to the conversation and preface it with, this may come out completely wrong. I'm just trying to understand. Please help me understand, and then ask your question. I think that allows openness to the conversation, because you have to be honest when you come to these type of conversations and asking questions. Um, and I think we are so on edge as the church, we are so on edge as a country, that everything may seem quote unquote racist.
Mhm.
And the truth is, not everything is racist, or not everything is malicious in intent. But if we are not able to have these conversations, nothing is going to ever change. So we have to be able to approach the conversation in a way that everybody is open with themselves and trying to understand. Now, that being said, if we're not entering the conversation and allowing ourselves to be changed by the conversation,
Mhm.
or if we're going to enter in conversation and still be shut off, or still be hardened heart at the situation, then again, nothing is going to change, and the conversation probably didn't need to be had. But if we approach it humbly and open, I don't think that there's a question out there, no matter how it's said, um, that is not, if it's seeking knowledge. I think it's the most important point, and seeking knowledge and understanding is the most important part of asking questions. But I had a lot of friends, just to go back to Facebook posts and to go back to even asking me questions. A lot of friends, then you get this backlash of and you probably have seen, and if you're a part of Facebook scene or any social media, have seen that there's this movement that says, for our white brothers and sisters, your silence is choosing a side. So a lot of my friends were afraid of not posting anything, but was afraid of posting anything because what they might have said may have come off a little racist. So a couple of my friends have sent me the proof of what they wanted to write. And then I asked them, is your intent for you to, save face in front of people who say you may be racist if you don't speak up, or is there other ways that you can show your support? Is there other ways that you can change the systemic racism, the bigotry, the hatred that's in this country? And then I would suggest doing that, because only Facebook goes so far. And what we have seen is that, these situations pop up, and people are activists for that week or for that month that is going on. But to put your words into action is something else. And what that means is that it's going to call for you to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable with your friends group. You're going to be uncomfortable sometimes with your church. You're going to be uncomfortable with your family at times. It's just going to be, it's an uncomfortable situation. But as Christians, we're not called to be comfortable all the time. We're not called to stay in our comfort zone. We're called to reach out to the least of these. We are called to go out to the areas of Samaria and go and get your brother, go and save your brother, to leave the 99. Not that the 99 don't matter. We're not saying that they don't matter. We're saying that the one that is lost needs to be saved. So we want to go out and get that one, to bring them back into the fold, so that we all can be loved by Christ. So yeah, so that was a long answer to
no, that's what I wanted to hear. But I thank you very much for sharing that. Anything else you want to add today that's on your heart?
Absolutely. So my thing is to not be fearful in the conversation, but to approach it humbly. And as you are listening, really hear the pain and the hurt and the struggle that your brothers and sisters are going through, to then put that emotion into action, to stand, and it goes to who you may vote for. It may go to who your state officials are, or your city officials are. It goes to how you react in church and who you are in communion with, and it calls for us to really stand and sometimes sacrifice in those things. But the Lord told us not to be anxious, to not be fearful, but in every situation to approach it with prayer and petition, and make our request known to Him. So to approach every situation not in fear, because God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit in which we can lean on to Him. And that's the way that we have to approach every situation. So don't be fearful to ask. Just ask in a right heart. Don't ask to seek answers for yourself or to prove a point for yourself, but to ask to hear and to really listen to your brothers and sisters who are hurting right now, and then go out and get that one. It is still about the 99, and the 99 still matter. But please go out and care for the one. And I shared this not too long ago, is that whenever one member of our body or one member of our congregation is hurting, we all hurt. And right now, a whole people group is hurting. And we as Christians not only have the obligation, but we have the responsibility to stand with our brothers and sisters, to see the injustices in the world, to be able to change those whenever we can, to change the conversation or the narrative in our friend groups, to change the narrative even in our churches, to say, this is something that is very important. I believe it was Karl Barth that had who has said, I keep a Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. Don't quote me on that or who said it, but nevertheless, it's still important that we have to stay in the Word of God, but also stay in what's going on in the world. And if we're going to be the light to the world, we have to be in the world. We have to see the injustices in the world.
I just want to thank you again very much for taking time to be with us today on Family Talks. And I could sit here and talk to you all afternoon, but you're in Michigan right now with your family. And so I don't want to take any more time away. But you've given us some valuable, not just information, but you've spoken from your heart, and you've given us some practical things as believers in Christ that we can do together to bring about substantive change. So I have a feeling this will not be the last conversation I'll have with you. At least I hope not, because I've really enjoyed our time together. And I want to encourage folks again who are watching this, if you did not see the dialogue between Pastor Porterfield and DaVontae on Fifth Avenue Live on Facebook, just want to encourage you to go there and check that out as well. Safe travels, my friend, and hope to see all of you who are joining us today next week for Family Talks.